at a luxury car dealership in downtown Chicago. Two black teenage boys walk in, instantly drawn to a $3 million hypercar. But their excitement is met with mocking laughter, sneers, and sales staff who dismiss them, convinced they don't belong. The next morning, two rare supercars glide into the showroom, and those same boys step out, followed by their father, calm, powerful, and today, their presence is about to deliver a quiet reckoning the staff will never forget. Before we dive in this story, let us know where you're watching from. We love to hear your thoughts. The showroom gleamed like a crystal palace beneath the morning sun, all glass walls and marble floors, reflecting a world few could afford to enter. Inside Arlington Prestige Motors, the scent of leather, chrome, and espresso mingled in the air, carefully cultivated elegance where silence was luxury and conversation only came with credit. The sales floor was quiet, humming with polite murmurs and the soft clink of polished shoes. A couple in designer sunglasses examined the newest Aurelius Venom GT, a hypercar that shimmered in obsidian black, its price tag casually tucked to the side, $2,800,000. No one noticed the two boys at first. They arrived quietly on bikes, worn from use in summers past, the soft squeak of their tires barely breaking the air as they pulled up outside the dealership. Finn Wells, 17, tall for his age but still all sharp angles and limbs, held the door open for his younger brother, Leo, 15, whose eyes widened as the glass doors parted with a smooth hiss. They wore combat shorts, white t-shirts, and sneakers scuffed with city dust. No watches, no labels, just youth, curiosity, and the kind of wonder that came before the world taught you to be ashamed of wanting more. The moment they stepped inside, heads turned, not in recognition but in mild, quiet disapproval. Their eyes were locked on the Venom GT, parked like a panther in the center of the floor. Finn pointed toward it, breathless. "That's it," he whispered, "that's the one I showed you." Leo nodded, eyes wide. They approached slowly, not touching, just admiring, like they were standing in front of a dream no one had told them they were allowed to have. Then the voice came, clipped, cold, measured with disdain. "Can I help you?" The boys turned. A man in a perfectly fitted navy suit stood just feet away, arms crossed, cufflinks catching the light. "Randall Shaw, top salesman at Arlington for 4 years. We were just wondering about this model," Finn said carefully, nodding toward the car. "Does it really go 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds? Randall raised a brow. His eyes dropped from Finn's face to his shoes, then to the fabric of his shorts. He smirked, not even bothering to hide it. "You boys know this car starts at $2.8 million, right?" He said it slowly, over-enunciating every syllable, like he wasn't sure if they could comprehend the number. "Maybe you'd be more comfortable checking out something less advanced. We don't usually do tours." Leo's smile faded instantly. He glanced down at his shoes as if they'd betrayed him. A few feet away, the couple with sunglasses looked over. The man chuckled under his breath. The woman offered a half-smile, the kind people give to say, "You really thought you belonged here." Finn cleared his throat. "We weren't trying to waste your time." Randall exhaled sharply through his nose. "Oh, I'm sure you weren't. But let's not waste yours either. These cars aren't for spectators." His tone dipped on the last word. The emphasis wasn't accidental. The word spectators hung heavy, coated in implication. And just like that, the showroom returned to normal. People went back to their business, as if brushing off a minor disturbance. But for the two boys, everything had shifted. Finn nodded stiffly. "Right. Sorry to bother you." He turned to leave. Leo followed. Their footsteps, though light, seemed to echo against the floor. The glass doors opened with the same soft hiss, but this time it sounded more like a dismissal. They were halfway down the steps when a voice called out behind them. "Wait!" They stopped. A woman stepped out from behind a nearby desk. She wore black slacks and a cream blouse, her curly hair pulled into a neat bun. Her badge read Clara Hayes. Her expression wasn't condescending or cautious, just calm. "Do you have a minute?" she asked. The boys exchanged glances. Finn hesitated, but then they wheeled their bikes back and stepped inside once more. "I heard you asking about the Venom GT," Clara said gently. "It's an incredible vehicle. Let me show you a few things." Her voice was steady, professional, but beneath it was something rare in that place: sincerity. She crouched slightly to their level, walked them through the specs, opened the door for them. "You want to sit inside?" she asked. Leo's eyes widened. "Seriously?" She smiled. "Seriously." They took turns sitting quietly, respectfully. No selfies, no jumping around, just the kind of reverent awe that came from loving something you didn't yet have, but believed someday you might. When they stepped out, she handed Finn her card. "If you ever have more questions, you can call me directly. And you're always welcome here." Finn took it like it was made of gold. They left with their heads a little higher. Inside, Randall muttered to a coworker, "Wasting her time." Clara heard it. She didn't care, because something about those boys stuck with her: the way they asked questions most adults didn't, the way they didn't flinch when dismissed, the way they reminded her of someone she used to be. And somewhere in the back of the showroom, beneath the scent of polish and prestige, something important had just happened, something no one would understand, not yet. The ride home was quiet. Finn and Leo pedaled side by side, their bikes cutting through the late afternoon breeze, wheels humming against the smooth pavement of Lake Forest, where houses weren't just built, they were designed. Streets here were lined with oaks and silent Teslas, with lawn edges trimmed to perfection. But neither boy noticed. Something heavier than their backpacks weighed on their shoulders now. They reached the long, gated driveway and slowed to a stop. The gate recognized the chip in Finn's key fob and opened without a sound. The mansion beyond didn't look like it belonged to someone angry with the world, it looked like it belonged to someone who had already won the war. They coasted up the curved path, tires crunching lightly over the gravel. "He's probably in the study," Finn murmured. Leo nodded. They walked past the minimalist staircase, past the gallery wall of black and white photographs, all originals, until they reached the hallway where the sound of piano used to fill the air. But today, the grand piano in the study stood still. Their father sat at it anyway, facing the keys, hands resting on his lap, not playing, just thinking. A tumbler of something amber sat untouched on the side table. He wasn't the kind of man you interrupted, not because he demanded reverence, but because his presence already commanded it. Dr. Alistair Wells, 47, didn't look up when they entered. He didn't need to. "Back already?" he asked, voice calm, almost too calm. The boys hesitated. Finn closed the door softly behind them, the click louder than it should have been. "Yeah," Leo said. "We didn't stay long." Their father turned slightly in his chair, eyes meeting theirs. He studied them, not with suspicion, not with judgment, just attention. "Everything all right?" Finn opened his mouth, then closed it. The reflex was to say yes, to keep it moving, but something in his father's gaze, the weight, the stillness, pulled the truth out instead. "No," he said quietly. "Not really." Alistair gestured to the two leather armchairs near the fireplace. "Sit." They dropped their backpacks and sank into the chairs. The room was silent, except for the faint ticking of an antique wall clock and the jazz still playing somewhere above them. Their father didn't speak right away. He swirled the drink in his glass, set it down again without tasting it, then turned his chair slightly more toward them. "Tell me what happened." The story came slowly, halting, hesitant. Finn went first, his words stiff at first, like they might fall apart if he wasn't careful. "We went to Arlington Prestige, you know, the exotic dealership. We weren't messing around. We just wanted to see the Venom GT in person. We were polite. We didn't touch anything. We just looked." Alistair nodded slowly. "Then what?" Leo leaned forward, elbows on knees, fingers laced tight. "One of the guys there, he looked at us like we were trash. He laughed. Said the car started at almost 3 million. Told us we were in the wrong place. Other people laughed too. I didn't even realize they were listening until they started smiling at us like we were some joke. He paused, jaw tight. It was embarrassing. The air in the room thickened, not with rage, but with something deeper. Finn looked down at his hands. But then this woman, Clara, she stepped in after the others brushed us off. She actually talked to us, explained everything, let us sit inside the car, gave me her card. Alistair leaned back, leather creaking slightly beneath him. His expression didn't shift, not visibly, but there was something in the way he stilled, completely stilled, that suggested everything inside him had. Did she know who you were? He asked, voice quiet. Finn shook his head. No. We didn't say our last name. Alistair murmured, almost to himself, then. Came the question neither boy had expected. Soft, but direct. Why do you think they treated you that way? Leo answered first. Because of our clothes. Finn added, because of our skin. Alistair didn't nod. He didn't disagree either. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, clasped his hands behind his back, and stared out at the sprawling grounds. People often confuse appearance with value, he said at last. And that tells you far more about them than it ever does about you. The boy said nothing. He turned back to face them. You did nothing wrong. You didn't act out. You didn't shrink. You told me the truth. That's all I need from you. That was it. No lecture, no outrage, just clarity. The sun had nearly disappeared when they stood to leave the study. As they reached the door, Finn hesitated. You're not mad? Alistair looked up from his glass. At who? Finn shrugged. The salesman. The people who laughed. Alistair took a slow breath. I don't waste energy being angry at people who show me who they are. I just remember. And when the time is right, I act. He raised his glass, not to drink, but to mark the end of the conversation. The boys left in silence. But as the door closed behind them, Leo looked up at Finn and asked, Do you think he's going to do something? Finn gave a faint smile. You really don't know Dad by now. The house had long since gone quiet. Upstairs, the boys were in their rooms, one sketching cars in a notebook, the other scrolling through engine specs on a second-hand tablet. But downstairs in the study, lit only by the warm glow of a single-floor lamp, Dr. Alistair Wells sat alone, his fingers steepling beneath his chin, unmoving. The untouched glass from earlier still sat on the table beside him, but his attention wasn't on it. His laptop screen glowed faintly, casting subtle light across his face, revealing not anger, but precision, purpose. He opened his private contact list and clicked on a name marked only with a single letter, G. A direct line, no assistants, no middleman. The phone rang once, twice. Garrison, the voice on the other end, answered crisply. Alistair didn't waste time. I need both units pulled and delivered. The boat looms, serial 7 and 9. Full spec. Detail them tonight. Glass coat. No delays. There was a pause. Tomorrow, Alistair said, his tone even but final. I want them in front of Arlington Prestige Motors by 8:45 a.m. Not earlier, not later. Doors closed, engine silent. I'll arrive on foot. Yes, sir. Drivers briefed. I want them to wait with the cars until I exit. No movement until then. This is not about the vehicles, it's about timing. Presence. Garrison hesitated. Understood. You'd like the branding to remain discreet? Alistair's lips twitched, just a trace of a smile. We don't need logos to remind people who we are. Let the silence do the talking. He ended the call. Outside the study window, the trees barely stirred, windless and still. The world was quiet, but something had shifted. The line had been drawn, not out of spite, not out of vengeance, but because his sons had been dismissed by a man who measured worth with fabric and footwear. And because someone else, someone who had no idea who they were, had chosen to see them as people, not assumptions. He stood, stretched once, then walked to a cabinet near the window. Inside was a narrow black box. From it, he pulled a pen, heavy, matte silver, engraved with the initials AW. It had been a gift from the first investor who ever believed in him, given on the day he signed his first seed funding contract. He hadn't used it in years, until now. He opened a folder, glanced at the purchase order prepped on his desk, and with practiced ease, signed his name. No anger, no drama, just motion with meaning. As he placed the pen back into its case, he paused, staring down at the paper for a long moment. It wasn't about proving anything. It never had been. It was about showing his son something more important, that silence doesn't mean weakness, that you don't have to raise your voice to make a room go quiet, that real power arrives when it's ready and leaves when it's done. And tomorrow morning, the world would learn that some names don't need to be said to be remembered. He turned off the lamp, and the room went still. The morning sun broke across Chicago's skyline like a curtain pulled back on a stage no one knew was set. Outside Arlington Prestige Motors, the street gleamed wet with early dew, quiet except for the occasional hum of a passing car. But at exactly 8:45 a.m., something extraordinary arrived. Not with fanfare, but with precision. 2 Aurelius boat-loom hypercars, one obsidian black with carbon silver accents, the other a deep royal blue laced in gold, pulled up in tandem and came to a silent, synchronized stop in front of the showroom. They didn't roar. They didn't rev. They simply arrived. Their doors stayed closed, their engines cut. But the effect was immediate. Inside the dealership, conversations dropped mid-sentence. Staff froze. A potential buyer nearly dropped his espresso as he leaned toward the window. "That's not just a boat loom," someone whispered. "That's 2 of them, back to back." Phones came out. Cameras clicked. No one moved closer. No one dared. Then one of the rear doors on the blue boat loom opened. Finn Wells stepped out first, wearing the same white t-shirt, combat shorts, and scuffed sneakers he had worn the day before. Not a crease had been changed. He didn't look around, didn't smirk, didn't flex. He simply stood with a quiet stillness that commanded attention without asking for it. Leo followed, same clothes, same shoes, but a gaze more certain, as if the weight from the previous day had shifted into something steadier. The 2 boys walked around the front of the black boat loom, where the second rear door now opened, slow and smooth. Their father stepped out. Dr. Alistair Wells didn't wear a watch, he didn't need one. His tailored charcoal suit whispered money without shouting it. He adjusted his cuffs with the precision of a man who expected excellence in the smallest details. His face was unreadable, calm, controlled. When his polished shoes touched the pavement, the air shifted again, not because of who he was, but because of how he carried what he was. Inside, Randall Shaw was in the middle of retelling yesterday's story to a junior associate, mimicking the boys' posture for a cheap laugh, when he saw them through the glass. The color drained from his face. His voice died in his throat. His posture stiffened. He watched the 3 figures walk calmly toward the showroom doors, and for the first time in his long sales career, he felt like the glass between them wasn't protection, it was warning. The doors parted open with a soft hush, the same sound that had dismissed Finn and Leo the day before. But this time, the silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was reverent. As they entered, customers stepped aside. Employees stopped typing. A manager's head peeked over his glass office wall. The room stilled, like the moment before a storm breaks. Alistair walked to the reception desk, his sons flanking him. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't flash credentials. "I'd like to speak with the staff member who assisted my sons yesterday," he said, every syllable clear, deliberate. The receptionist blinked twice, startled, then nodded. "Yes, of course." One moment. Before she could move, Randall stepped forward too quickly, voice rising with desperate cheer. "Sir, that was actually me. We spoke yesterday. I helped your sons." Alistair turned his head just slightly and fixed Randall with a gaze that ended the sentence before it was spoken. "No," he said, voice sharp as a scalpel. "You weren't the one who helped them." Randall opened his mouth again, but nothing came out. The room watched. Alistair turned his gaze toward the man behind the glass wall. "You're the floor manager?" "Yes, sir," the man replied, stepping forward cautiously. "I assume your security cameras are working?" Alistair said. The manager nodded. "Yes, we archive everything." "Then I suggest you review the footage before we continue this conversation." The manager didn't argue. He simply vanished back into his office. The seconds that passed next felt heavier than minutes. Employees whispered. A few customers shifted, unsure whether to leave or stay. Most stayed. They felt something happening, something that would outlive this morning. Randall stood there, pale, jaw tight. Leo looked at him once, then looked away. Finn didn't look at him at all. They weren't here to gloat. They were here to be seen. 10 minutes later, the manager returned. His face was no longer neutral, it was pale. His voice steady, but low. "We reviewed the footage. The staff member who assisted your sons was Ms. Clara Hayes." Alistair nodded once. "And this man?" he asked, gesturing toward Randall, though never bothering to use his name. The manager swallowed. He misrepresented the interaction. His behavior was unprofessional and discriminatory. Alistair looked back to his sons. They didn't need to say anything. The truth was already doing the work for them. Randall's face was tight, pale, his confidence evaporated into the stale, charged air of the showroom. He looked around as if searching for someone, anyone, to step in, to say something that would undo what had already been seen. But there was no rescue coming. The truth was too loud now, even in silence. Dr. Alistair Wells turned toward him fully for the first time, his expression unreadable, carved from something deeper than anger. His voice came low, but each word struck like a hammer wrapped in velvet. "You judged my sons the moment they walked through your door. Not based on who they were, but on what they wore. You looked at their skin, their shoes, and decided they didn't belong. You didn't ask questions. You didn't offer help. You laughed." Randall opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His lips quivered around a defense that refused to form. "You didn't just fail as a salesperson," Alistair continued, tone even but deadly. "You failed as a human being." The words landed with a weight that pulled the room into stillness. No one moved. The junior salesperson who had laughed the day before stood motionless, his smirk long gone. Even the barista near the espresso bar paused mid-pour. The manager cleared his throat quietly, stepping forward with a clipboard in hand. "Effective immediately," he said, voice clipped with discomfort, "Randall Shaw is terminated from his position at Arlington Prestige Motors. Security will escort you off the premises." A few gasps broke the surface of the tension. Randall didn't argue, didn't beg. He simply lowered his gaze, took a slow breath, and turned. The walk to the exit was silent, but heavier than steel. As he passed Finn and Leo, he didn't dare meet their eyes. The same boys he had dismissed less than 24 hours earlier now stood with quiet, undeniable dignity, unchanged in appearance, but transformed in power. He exited through the same glass doors they had once been ushered out of, but he left with less than nothing. Alistair didn't watch him go. He didn't need to. His gaze shifted toward the manager. "Now," he said, his voice steady. "Bring me Ms. Hayes." And just like that, the axis of the room turned again, not on wealth, not on status, but on choice, on who had chosen to see and who had chosen to look away. The glass doors slid open again, and Clara Hayes stepped onto the showroom floor, unaware that everything had changed. Dressed just as she had been the day before, she carried only her clipboard and the quiet professionalism that had set her apart. When she saw Finn and Leo, her expression lit with warmth and concern. "Is everything okay?" she asked softly. Alistair stepped forward and offered a calm, genuine smile. "More than okay," he said. "You treated my sons with respect when no one else did. You listened. You saw them. That matters." Clara blinked, caught off guard. They were polite, thoughtful. It was no trouble. Alistair nodded, then turned toward the Venom GT. "They like that one," he said. Every feature they mentioned, added Clara. She hesitated. Sir, that's over 3 million. Then make it 3.1, he said, pulling a sleek silver pen from his pocket. And make sure the full commission goes to you. As he signed, the same counter where his sons had once been dismissed now held a deal that would ripple through the room. Staff stood in stunned silence. A few looked away. Some didn't blink. When the final signature dried, Alistair handed the keys directly to Finn and Leo. Happy early birthday, he said. No cheering, no posturing. The boys accepted them quietly, with the weight of what they now represented, dignity restored. Outside, the showroom doors opened again. The boys walked out the same way they'd come in, same white t-shirts, same shorts, but everything about them had changed. This time, no one laughed. This time, the world watched. Alistair turned once more to Clara. Keep doing what you did, he said. Kindness doesn't go unnoticed. Not forever. She nodded, her voice low. Thank you. As the Venom GT slipped into traffic, its engine soft and controlled, the dealership held its breath. A quiet ding echoed from the manager's office hours later. Clara returned to her desk to find a sealed envelope. Inside, promotion, senior sales consultant. Effective immediately. She didn't cry. She didn't boast. She folded the letter, stood tall, and walked through the floor with quiet power. Her steps spoke for her, because respect isn't demanded, it's earned. And kindness, it never goes out of style. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.